Hello! Welcome to our 7th class. Today we are going to study indirect questions. Okay, so we are going to learn how we can take a direct question and turn it into the indirect form. But why are we studying this? Why is this an important subject in English? Well, usually when we are going to ask for information or even when we are going to ask someone to do something for us, it is very important to be polite. One way of being polite in English is asking the question indirectly, okay? So this is what we are going to see today. Come with me. So let's begin with a conversation from which we are going to extract some of the information we need to study, okay? Follow me then. Excuse me, do you know where the Empire State Building is? No, I don't. Sorry. I'm not from New York City either. Can you tell me what time the museums open? Yes, I can. They open at 9 a.m. on weekdays. Okay? So this is what we saw here was a conversation in which people were asking each other for information. Okay? So let us go back and see how did they ask for this information. To begin with, the guy asked, "Excuse me, do you know where the Empire State Building is?" So this is an indirect question. You see, the direct question would be, where is the Empire State Building? Where is the Empire State Building? But you see, this is not a very polite way to ask for information. So what did the guy here do? He asked the question indirectly. He began by, do you know? He began with, do you know? So do you know where the Empire State Building is? Okay? So the girl says she doesn't know because she is not from New York City. When the sentence is negative, we use either or either, okay? Both pronunciations are correct. So we have to use this instead of to, okay? We do not use to when the sentence is in the negative form, right? Remember that? So soon we're going to review that in future classes, okay? Now it is her turn to ask an indirect question. Pay attention. Can you tell me what time the museums open? So which would be, or what would be the direct question for this question here? What time do the museums open? What time do they open, right? So you see that every time we ask an indirect question, we have to change the question structure, okay? This is exactly what we're going to see now. So she asks, can you tell me what time the museums open? And the guy says, yes, he can, right? Yes, I can. They open at 9 a.m. on weekdays, right? Okay then, so let us see here questions with be. Normal questions, something that we are very used to, right? For example, where is the supermarket? Okay, very simple, direct question. Or, how much are those tomatoes? How much are those tomatoes? Okay, also direct. Now, how can we turn these questions in the indirect form? Okay, look here, come with me. The first, where is the supermarket becomes, for example, can you tell me, do you know, could you tell me? Okay, these are all possible ways of beginning an indirect question. So, can you tell me where the supermarket is? Now, look at the difference in the structure here. The question is actually at the beginning. Look here. Can you, so the modal verb can is before the subject to ask the question. So because of that, here the verb to be from the direct question, right? This blue part here goes back to the affirmative form, right? So where the supermarket is. Look at the difference here. Where is the supermarket? This is the direct question. Where is the supermarket? Verb to be before the subject. But here in the indirect question, the question, the mark of the question is at the beginning, is right here. Can you? So can you is already shows that this is a question, an interrogative sentence, okay? So because of that, we place verb to be back in its original position, right? In the affirmative form. Okay, let's see one more here. How much are those tomatoes? Same thing, look here, verb to be before the subject, those tomatoes. So how much are they, right? Question. And indirect question. Do you know how much those tomatoes are? So the verb to be goes back to its the affirmative form, right? To its normal position in affirmative sentences. Why? Because here at the beginning, look, we have do you. Do you is already a question structure, right? Do is the auxiliary verb to form a question in the simple present, right? So do you know? Do you know how much those tomatoes are? Very simple, right? So this same is going to happen when we have questions with do. Let's see here two examples again. What time does the store open? What time does the store open, right? This is very simple, direct question. What time does the store open? Another one. When did the manager leave? When did the manager leave? So here, because I used the verb to do in the simple past, the sentence is in the simple past, right? But also we are only using the do structure, right? The questions with the verb to do. Now, how can we turn this first sentence here into an indirect form? Look here. Now, can you tell me what time the store opens? What time the store opens? Okay, so you see here, remember when we learned the simple present, so we had, for example, the store opens is the affirmative form. Question, does the store open? Okay, so what we are doing now is we are just reversing what we usually do, right? Usually we turn an affirmative sentence into a question. And now, because the question is indirect, what we have to do is to turn the question back to the affirmative form. Remember why? Because here at the beginning we already have the question structure. Can you, right? So can you tell me, do you know, could you tell me? These structures for indirect questions are already in the interrogative form, okay? So because of that, can you tell me what time the store opens? Now the second, when did the manager leave? Now the sentence is in the simple past, so I also have to adapt the indirect question. Look here, do you know when the manager left? Do you know when the manager left? So all that I did was I cancelled, right? I turned the sentence back to its affirmative form. Only this part here, because we still have a question structure at the beginning, right? So when the manager left. So the manager left would be affirmative. Question, did the manager leave? Did the manager leave? Okay, so that's all. We are only doing the opposite of what we are used to do. Taking an affirmative sentence and turning it to a question. Now we are taking a question and turning it back to the affirmative form because the structure for the question is already at the beginning of the indirect question, okay? So it's very simple, but it's important to practice, right? So let us do that. Now, here we have a question in the direct form. Where is the nearest bank? Where is the nearest bank? So we have verb to be before the subject, normal question structure, right? Now, indirect, could you tell me where the nearest bank is? Where the nearest bank is. Do you guys remember what nearest mean? So it means the closest, right? Remember we have near and nearer and nearest. Remember that? Comparisons and superlatives. This is the nearest bank, right? The bank that is closest to where we are, okay? So that's it. Now, one more. When does the next bus leave? when does the next bus leave? So does here, right, for a question. So how can we turn this into an indirect question? Do you know when the next bus leaves? The next bus is the same as it. So here we have, for he, she, it, we have to conjugate the verb leave with an S in the end. Remember that? So when the next bus leaves. Do you know when the next bus leaves? We just turned this question here into an affirmative sentence because we have the question at the beginning already, okay? Now, what time did flight 366 land? What time did flight 366 land? Now, indirect, can you tell me what time flight 366 landed? Okay, because here we have did showing us that this is a simple past sentence. We just have then to remove did, remove the auxiliary verb, and conjugate the main verb in the simple past. Land is a regular verb, so we just add ed in the end, right? So what time flight, can you tell me, or could you tell me, or do you know what time flight 366 landed? Okay? And one more. Where can I find a library? Okay, so these are all questions that we usually ask when we are traveling and when we need information, right? So, where can I find a library? Now, could you tell me where I can find a library? Where I can find a library? Okay, so here we had the modal verb can was before the subject. So, very simple, we just place it back after the subject to form the indirect question, okay? Or we turn it back to an affirmative structure, okay? Very simple, okay? So, where can I find the library? Could you tell me where I can find the library, okay? Very simple. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this class. So, if you liked the class, please give us a thumbs up at the bottom of the video. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. Next class, I'm going to correct with you our list of exercises number 2. So soon you can go to my website, www.professormarcondes.com.br. You can download our exercise list number 2, solve the questions, okay? And next class, I'm going to correct it with you, okay? So thank you very much again. I appreciate the messages and emails I've been receiving. Hope to see you next class. Bye bye.